welcome to a new episode of the Mystical Journey. It's actually today is our last episode of the year, and it's going to be the last until the equinox, the spring equinox. So we're going to be off for the winter. Today we have a wonderful guest, Sacha, that we've had the pleasure of taking a class with just right now. Sacha, if you've been watching the show, is Chela's sister. So both sisters are very spiritual. And Sacha, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you. I'm excited to be here on the show. My name is Sacha Taylor. I am a yoga instructor. I teach Kundalini yoga. I'm here at the People's Yoga Studio in East LA. I'm an artist. I do pottery and music. And let's see, I'm from LA. I like to travel. I like to travel a lot. I'm like, what do I say?
No, but that's perfect. Yeah. Because I mean, we've known each other for a while, and I'm curious about what really got you started on the yoga journey, because, you know, I mean, it started a while ago, I think, but you can maybe tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah. So yoga has been something that was part of my life, like since even before I was born. So for me, it was not really ever like a new thing, but as I was growing up in, high school and college, it wasn't something I was like very active in. And towards the end of college, I actually started going to a hot yoga studio because I lived in Washington, D.C. at the time, and it was like extremely cold in the winter. So I somehow just ended up in like a hot yoga studio, and I felt amazing. And I was like, oh, cool. Like my body feels really good. And just mentally and emotionally, I feel like I can release a lot. So that was in like 2008, 9 or so. And then in 2013, I went to study at Yogi Hari's ashram, which is an awesome place. I'm happy to talk about more. It's a yoga school in South Florida, and it's like very traditional. So I went and stayed there for a couple months. And that's when I began like studying to teach yoga. And so I've been teaching ever since then. It's like almost 9 years now. And yeah, I teach with kids, I teach with adults and like elderly people. So I really love it, and, like to spread yoga as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know you're also doing different workshops too. You have a partner that you're doing it with. If you want to talk about it a little bit more too, because I've been to one of these, I think it was a full moon workshop, the one I came to, and you have a lot of good insights when you conduct the workshops.
Thank you. Yes, that was I can't remember if it was the full moon. I know it was in August, and it was a self-love workshop that we did. And everything is very focused in like the practice of ritual. So to me, yoga is a ritual, meaning, I do it in a certain way, even if it looks different. There's like a beginning, a ritual, and like the ending. And so that, I mean, you can apply that to a lot of areas in life. But what we do in these workshops, it's called Women of La Luna is our group. And so it's like Women of the Moon. What we particularly do in these workshops is really look at what's going on in like the universe. Like you said, is it a full moon? Is Venus going into Libra? Different things that can be going on, and how can we take even more of that energy and like bring it into the room and bring it into a circle, and do that in really sacred ways. So for the last 2 years, I've been training with a group called the Vessel of Worth. And it's also something I can talk about more, but it's essentially learning like the basis of ritual practices, to do it in like a really safe and powerful way. And to me, what that means is just, again, kind of like harnessing energy, like really setting up like a sacred space, so that when you want something to happen, you're using like the elements, you're using energies of different gods or goddesses, different like, you know, just plants, like all of these different things, kind of bringing it into what you're up to get kind of like the outcome and results that you want. So it's very mystical and magical. And that's a lot of what we bring into those workshops. And then of course the aspects of Kundalini yoga as well. So it's kind of a melange of everything.
Yeah, so the class we took this morning was Kundalini, but you teach other forms, because I don't know much about yoga. You know, I think what I appreciated about the class this morning is it's because it's not as much as like a workout, you know what I mean? So it's not as threatening to me. It doesn't work out that much, you know? So what are the differences? I mean, for people who are not educated in yoga?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm also happy to share that I have a podcast about yoga.
Yeah.
I did probably at least like 40 or so episodes on some different topics, but one of them is called "What type of yoga do you teach?" Because if you say I teach yoga, then that's the first question that people ask. And so the way I understand it and try to explain it is almost like a flavor or a style or a cuisine. So if you go to a restaurant and they do like Mexican food, that's a certain thing. If you go to a restaurant and they do Japanese food, that's totally different. Like the food is totally different, but you're still eating and you're still receiving, you know, nutrients and energy and all of that. So I kind of think about different yoga in that way. Like it could be a Bikram yoga or Kundalini yoga, or Bikram's probably a bad example now, but you know, different like flavors and styles, depending also on what you need. You know, sometimes in different seasons, like I mentioned, hot yoga, like that was really good for me in January in Washington, D.C. But I'm not going to do a hot yoga class today because we're in LA and it's like 90 degrees. So just like with food, you might want smoothies and like a raw food only, or you might want like soup and something baked with, you know, potatoes and beans and stuff. So all that to say, it's kind of like different styles of cuisine, and every teacher is kind of like bringing their own offering of yoga to you. But basically with Kundalini yoga, it's a flavor that to me is very healing because there's a lot of repetition. So in a Hatha yoga class, which is what I originally studied and I also am very comfortable teaching, in a Hatha yoga class, you'll experience things that might feel a bit like stretchy and static, right? Like you go into a warrior crescent pose and then you come down and like you kind of are going through a downward dog vinyasa flow. And what's interesting about those classes, those are sometimes what you see like on Instagram yoga, especially when it first started, and you would see people doing very like elaborate kind of poses and stuff. That can be, I think, a little bit intimidating. So a lot of what we consider like the most popular or traditional yoga can be a little intimidating for people to just try out. But like you said, you don't really exercise a lot. Kundalini yoga, you can practice the movements with your breath and the motions, and you can kind of make it your own. So you can push yourself a little bit more, or you can slow down a little bit or take it a little more easy. And you're still getting a lot of the same benefits for your body, but especially for your nervous system. So it's all very scientific, and it really, really helps mentally, spiritually get our nervous system like more balanced, because there's so much going on. You know, there's a lot of like technology now, there's a lot of responsibilities that people have. Even just if you think about how many people have access to you, like you can go through your whole day and there might be like 20 people that you have to talk to at a store that call you for something, or you have to call them for something. So it's just a lot of like interaction, and that can be very draining and exhausting, and it can really make our nervous system feel like worn out. And so then you can snap more easily because you like don't really have the capacity to like respond gracefully to situations. So for me, Kundalini yoga really helps me to like keep my nervous system like strong and tough and like feel like my brain is working, so that then as things are coming up in life, like it's okay, like I can handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You practice yoga
Yeah.
every day too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Ever since the lockdown and everything, I've been like online doing it every day. Yeah.
What do you feel maybe differently or not, like doing a class like today versus maybe another flavor or style?
Yeah, because I don't practice Kundalini every day, but I'm very familiar with Kundalini. And like you said, I love Kundalini because of what it does to your nervous system and how it kind of connects everything. I mean, I get a similar thing with like a more physical yoga. Let's say like Kundalini can be super physical too. I mean, the repetition of things, and I've been doing like, you know, those gestures and things like, okay, you do this for, like you said, 11 minutes, and after a while it becomes like a trance. You're in like a sort of a trance, but then it's still very physical.
Yeah.
So I love to, just like I love to switch up cuisines and flavors, I love to kind of do them all. I think it helps in different areas of your body, mind, and spirit, and life in general. So yeah, I think it's great to kind of have your toolbox and just like, oh, today I need more of this, and or I feel more like that. And then, you know, even when we did the meditation at the end of your class, you know, it's 11 minutes. There's days where you can sit still for 11 minutes, for a half hour, no problem. And there's days where you're going to be like,
Yeah,
you know, after 2 minutes, you're like, boom, boom, like things come in your mind. So I think it's a great practice. So
I'm wondering, when you do the teachers training, how important is connecting to the breath? Because that must be a work in its own, right? Because, you know, like I'm hearing connect to the breath and everything, and then all of a sudden I'm losing it, and then I have to go back into it. How important is it, and how is
the
it
major? Yeah,
it's the major.
Yeah, I mean, that's the practice of it. If we say like yoga practice is like, okay, I'm going to try again today. So there's always, like you said, things that might pop into your head. And I think with every style or flavor of yoga, connecting to the breath is really what makes it yoga. The word is like union, like yoga is like to yoke or unite. And so a lot of people will just translate that as to unite the movement and the breath, or the body and the mind, like you're uniting like two things together in yourself. And so, yeah, in Kundalini yoga, but also in other styles that I've studied, the pranayama and breathing exercises is really the foundation. And like Chloe's mentioning, like we didn't do it today necessarily, but you know, in other classes or other settings, there you might be like up here moving your hands, which like seems easy at first, but then 20 minutes later you're like, oh my god, like my hands are going to fall off. So the breath is the main thing that's actually keeping you steady and motivated. So it's like a
talk a little bit about the mantras, because I think sound is you know, because that's also connected to the breath, but it's also vibration of the sound. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So in yoga, like regardless of the style, let's just say like going back to, especially in India, although there was yoga all around the world, but especially in India, some of the ancient texts will talk about nada yoga, like NADA. And nada yoga is the yoga of sound and vibration. So hatha yoga is like the yoga of like the body and the breath and physical health. Nada yoga, you can have karma yoga, there's other kinds. But with nada yoga and mantra, it's, I mean, to me, that's like the most mystical, magical thing. Just this idea that basically since the beginning of time, humans have been making like noises or using tools to help you get into that like trance-like state, or that mental space where you're not focused on, you know, like the immediate thing that you have to do. You can kind of step back into your mind and like connect with something bigger. And so the idea with mantra is, you don't see a lot of mantras in English or other modern languages, but there are some. That sort of is more like a song, but a mantra that's in like Sanskrit or Gurumukhi or other like more ancient languages are really designed to, again, with your nervous system, like get into your brain and like activate certain things. Even the way we move our mouth, and especially our tongue, has a similar effect in the brain. So like the tongue itself will hit like the back of the teeth or the top of the mouth, certain things over and over again, and that will release like secretions in the brain that are connected to what you're working on, like that are connected to that mantra. So that stuff to me is really cool. There are now some like modern studies and research about mantra. If you look up the Kirtan Kriya, this is one in Kundalini Yoga where you Sata Nama, and then you whisper it, and you go through that for 11 minutes, or you can do like a 31-minute version. They've done studies at universities like at UCLA Medical Center and at Harvard University, where they've actually measured people who have sort of like brain is like losing strength, like through Alzheimer's or certain diseases like that. And they've put them on this meditation and actually shown like increase in their brain gray matter and capabilities. And it's not the same without the mantra. Like if you just sit here and touch your fingers and like think about it, it's not the same. It really is part of like hearing the sound and moving the mouth and having the vibrations work also. So that to me is like super magical. I don't really need the Harvard study like to believe it, you know, but I know some people like are very interested and like to see some of the more modern research. So we're going to see so much more of that in like the near future. We'll see like a lot.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And also I feel that when you're sitting in a class and you're, you know, even just making sounds with other people, the sounds as one. And that's also, I think, an aspect that I really enjoy, because then you're like, is it my voice or is it, you know, the other people's voices that I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that resonance. Yeah.
Very magical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do it like in, I mean, yeah, like chanting, but I think in even in different yoga class, you always have like a om, you know, at the end, or, you know, it's just, you know, there's always an aspect of some sound somewhere.
Yeah.
But I love that. I think it's like, it's a nice, like it brings everything together in a way.
Yeah. And it also forces you to get out of your comfort zone sometimes, because you feel, I'm not going to sing.
Yeah,
you know?
totally. Well, and one thing that's interesting that you see sometimes, like, okay, I'm in a group on WhatsApp, and it's yoga teachers from all around the world. And so someone shared a picture of a yoga studio in England, and the side of the yoga studio was like, no chanting, no praying. You know what I'm talking about? They're like, just
exactly, yeah.
Workout. And you're like,
work,
okay.
yeah. Just a good workout, no chanting, no blah blah, no. Yeah. I've seen those. Yeah.
It's like, that's fine. Like if that's what you like, that's fine. But it doesn't seem like it makes sense to then also call it a yoga studio. Like just do something different, like have a different title, and that's fine.
Yeah, be like fitness.
Yeah, especially because the thing that I appreciate in yoga classes in general, I mean, most of the yoga class I've took in my life, is the teacher, when it's a really good teacher, will always talk, I mean, like you did too, while we're doing the different poses or postures or exercises. It's you know, giving you insights on certain aspect of what you're doing, or certain aspect of yoga, or
Yeah.
just the yeah, just a little talk about those insights helps. You know, it's not just pure exercise, it's just a way of life almost. It's like you're having this part of your life, you're having this part of your practice, whether it's a you know, a physical practice, spiritual practice, it's everything.
Mm.
And that's why I always appreciate in a yoga class, because you always learn something besides, you know, the good physical effect it has on your body and your overall well-being. It's just you're learning something else. So yeah, so I've seen those studios like, no, you know, none of these, you know, chanting and all this, and I'm like, yeah, it's not the same.
But I think it's interesting though what you're saying, and I think that's why I'm intimidated by yoga sometimes, is because I think the first classes that I've been introduced to were these types of classes where it's just like workout, and it's like, I don't get it, you know what? And then I take a class with you, and it's totally different, you know. So I think it's, and everyone can find whatever they need in it, you know. There's no pushing, whether you know, whereas the class that I was taking is very, you know, it's a bit pushy. So,
and some classes can be challenging, you know, when they get into like postures that are more acrobatics. You know, and that's intimidating too for you know, newcomers, beginners, you know,
especially
like I
when
can't
you're
do
not
a
flexible.
handstand, or I can't do the wheel, or I can't do, you know. I mean, I know that was me years ago when I started. And but the magic of yoga classes, they always allow you, you know, they give you options usually. And then, you know, there's days I can't do it handstands, and there's days a handstand is like so easy. Also, it's listening, it's helping you. I think it's helping everybody listen to their own body. The more you practice, the more you know what your body can take that day or that moment.
Those situations, like what you described, is also a good life lesson to be careful when you're comparing yourself to someone else. You know, because that's, I think, what, at least for me, what I used to feel like. Sometimes you go into a class and you're like everyone else can do this, and like I'm not good at it or something, you know. And it's like, no, it's fine, like just do what you can do today, and then see what happens next time, or maybe never, and that's okay too, you know. So I think it gives you a training in how to be graceful with yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of, you're in the flow, you know. There's days where you have great balance, there's days where you're balanced, you're all shaky, and that's part of accepting yourself. And so I think, I mean, to me, yoga is great in that sense too. It's just teaching you all kinds of good lessons.
This is me saying it on here. 2022 is going to be the year of yoga. I'm not.
So when you do your training, like the first training that you got to learn to be to learn more about yoga, what were your days like? Is it like a, you know, you start with meditation, you start with movement, what's kind of like
the ashram life?
Yes.
So first of all, like my favorite place is like a yoga ashram. And yeah, you wake up, okay, let's say Yogi Hari's ashram, because I'm sure all of them are a little different, but in this place, you start the morning with nada yoga. So it's like chanting and then silent meditation, maybe like 6 a.m. or so, for about an hour. And then a hatha yoga class for like an hour and a half. So you're like stretching through everything. Then there would be a breakfast, like a pretty big breakfast, like khichdi or oatmeal, different fruit and stuff like that. They have lots of tropical fruit that grows there at the ashram also. Then you would do karma yoga activities. So that would be like work at the ashram, like either in the garden or in the kitchen. I always did projects for them with like videos and social media and stuff. So I would go in the office and like edit videos. But there's all types of things. They grow turmeric there. So there are some people that are like making capsules of like powdered turmeric for vitamins. And there's a lot of fun stuff to do. So you do that for like probably another hour or two. Then you can like rest and study and practice on your own. Then there's like a lecture in the afternoon, maybe 2 p.m. or so lecture, then another hatha yoga class. And also in the lecture, it might be like more like physical practice where you're learning like a lot of the details of anatomy and like how to teach certain things. Then yeah, the lecture, then dinner, like around 5 or 6, and then evening yoga, chanting, and meditation, and lecture with Yogi Hari, who's the guru there. And then basically you go to bed. So it's like just a whole day of yoga chanting with 2 meals and like a little bit of time to rest and hang out. And you do that for like weeks, and it's so amazing. Like it's like really, really great.
Yeah.
And so do all the people that go there want to become teachers, or not necessarily?
No, not necessarily. They have a few things that are short programs, like a long weekend or something. So that's really just like you go and have the experience and then leave. The trainings that I've done there, well, the first one I did was for 2 weeks, but then I stayed for like 4 months. Then the second one I did was for 3 weeks. And both of those, you get a certification at the end that, you know, you could take to a studio if you wanted to teach there. But a lot of people come more to have the routine and the experience for themselves, especially if like, you know, you might be going through a transition in life and you want to like
Connect.
Yeah, heal, release, meet people. It's also nice. You can meet some people from all around the world who are interested in similar things. Same thing with Kundalini yoga. The only difference I would say really is that tradition, their morning sadhana starts earlier. It's like at 4:30.
Like 4 a.m. or something.
Yeah. So it's like at 4 a.m. But otherwise it's like a pretty similar schedule. You just do a very early morning sadhana, then like yogi tea and karma yoga lecture, like all the same stuff basically.
And so you were talking earlier about the more, mystic group that you're in. Can you talk about it a little bit? I don't remember the name that you said.
It's called Vessel of Worth, which is like vow, VOW. Vessel of Worth was started by 2 women who are both like priestess people, yoga teachers as well. One of them is very advanced in like herbal and plant medicine. So they started this program for women to basically learn like spiritual ritual tools and techniques that are like very empowering. And it was amazing. So, and also this was during when things were really shut down. So it was like perfect timing for me. It started in October of 2020. And for the first year, there was a new topic basically every month. It was like by the moon cycles, but if we started it on a new moon, then you would go through a whole cycle about like ancestors was one of them, and then inner child was another one, and each one would have very detailed like daily practices that you would do. So for me it was perfect because I was at home, so it gave me something like every day to work on and focus on. And we had like the group was maybe like 80 people or something like that from all over the world, so it was a lot on WhatsApp and Zoom and stuff. But within that group, then you had a smaller group of like 6 people that were close by. So this was all people in California and Los Angeles. So it was like a lot of like sisterhood, and you could really like connect. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I don't know if they're going to do the same thing again, but if they do, like I would recommend it to anyone. Really, really, really good. And like I said, very empowering, very like practical things that you can learn how to do for yourself, and then things that you can learn how to do for like your friends and family or clients and students. So it's like job training almost, but also like changing your life at the same time through healing. And so that was the first year, and now it's in the second year, and it's a little different. It's the cycles are longer, and it's actually more focused on a certain like goddess figure energy for each cycle. And so it's a little bit more like personal study and practice, and you can kind of read things and do certain like practices and make offerings, and just kind of learn like some of the history, but also like just the mysticism of these figures. So yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I learned so much like all the time from that group. I really love it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Get up. Yeah, we had an astrologist who was writing a book on all the different goddesses. She's French, but she was doing that also. So it must be, it's in the air.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is because, just the way the world has been. If you take, for example, like one of the first like figures that we really connected with and studied is Mary Magdalene. And that's like a whole story from like one perspective that's very like religious and patriarchal. And so, even my husband, like he grew up in like Christian church, and I was like, tell me everything you know about Mary Magdalene. And so he was like telling me all this stuff. I'm like, none of that's true. And he was like, what? And so I've like explained to him, I'm like, did you just think about what I'm saying? Like, what makes more sense? Like just think about people and how a lot of these powerful figures have been manipulated to kind of have a lot of control, especially control over women. Like there's more to the story, and I think people now, it's in the air, it's in the water. Like everyone's like, okay, I refuse to believe what I've just been told. Like there has to be more, and I don't accept this anymore. I'm going to go study and learn a bit more for myself.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I mean, we come from a very patriarchal society that definitely tainted women in a certain light.
Yeah.
So that they didn't have the power. Yeah. So can you, for the people watching, maybe since this is the last episode of the year and we're going to be off for Christmas, not for Christmas, for the winter.
Yeah.
If you have like something that that people can keep as a practice, or an idea of whatever recommendations that you have.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I was thinking about, so when you go through the wheel of the year and you look at like the summer solstice and springtime, it's very active energy. Like it's going to make you want to feel more like connecting with people or doing activities. And when you go into the winter, it's kind of like this other side that is more making you feel like I'm going to connect with myself, and stay in a bit more. So I think sometimes we don't pay attention to that, especially, again, I said, like, we're in Los Angeles. The weather is not necessarily the thing that makes you stay in, right? A lot of these traditions were first like documented in places that is like completely cold and nothing's happening in the winter. So of course it's like that, but it's still important throughout the year to kind of shift what you're up to a little bit, because if you try to just do the same thing nonstop, then that's very exhausting and you don't give yourself time to like regenerate. So when we talk about like the fall and winter, again, the metaphor of nature is like lots of things kind of starting to die off. The leaves are falling. There's like compost happening on the ground. And I think that's something to work on in this time for yourself. And it doesn't have to be like sad, like it's not just like, oh, like something's dying, so that's too bad. It can be also like just this idea of kind of trimming and pruning things that you don't need to take into the next spring. So for me, for example, one of the things I'm going to do, I know we talk about spring cleaning, but for me in this winter, I'm going to plan to like really remove some stuff and like clutter from my house. Like what can I get rid of or give away or sell to someone that I don't need to take into the spring next year. So it's kind of like that idea of like the releasing and letting go. I think when it comes to like yoga practices, there's a lot of exercises and kind of things that you can do that are more like grounding. Like I'm kind of like thinking, you know, just what do you do like on the ground, even laying down, like meditations that are very calming. We talked about nada yoga and like vibration. There's like sound baths, or, you know, even if you don't go to a sound bath, there's like recordings and things like that that you can listen to. Like all of these things that kind of get you into like a cozy type of feeling, I think are all good at that time. And then also from like a ritual perspective, you know, again, with this idea of releasing and letting go, there are practices that you can do at this time of year to set up for new stuff, right? New beginnings in the spring. There's things you can do at this time of year that have to do with like releasing, like cutting cords. You know, you can visualize yourself and kind of all the things that you're connected to, like almost like if you're in a spider web, or if you have these like strings that are coming from you to like a lot of different people and situations, and like think about like, what do I want to actually like trim and cut off? So kind of using like the power and like your visualization and mind's eye to do those. You can also do that like with fire, like if you're writing down certain things that like you're just done with, it's old, it's outdated, using fire to like burn and release that. What I would say with those types of practices is that it's not necessarily a one-time thing. It's really something that you can commit to for example, a full moon cycle. So you're like, okay, on this full moon, I'm going to initiate like releasing and shedding a lot of these things. And you can start with like a big list, and every day just take one and like burn that in the flame. Then like the next day, take that first one and add to it. Or maybe you use the first one like 10 days in a row, you know, kind of like put time into it. Because I think also people really want like to go to one class or do one thing, and then they're like, okay, I'm good. And at least in my training and experience, it's like that doesn't really go deep enough. It's not that it's not possible. There can be a instant change or transformation that happens all the time. But for a lot of these things that maybe we don't even get to on the first day, you kind of have to be like, okay, now 6 weeks later, I feel like I was able to go like deeper into myself. And maybe my first list was like the stuff that I like think about, but it's kind of like surface level. Now that I'm 6 weeks into it, I'm like, oh, like also that other stuff that I never told anyone, you know. So it takes time. Like it's kind of like digging up something. Like you don't just do it one time. You're like there for a while getting into it. So I would say that the winter season and this time of year is good for giving yourself a little bit of time to work on these types of things. So then you just feel like, you know, it's like something's lighter when you go into the new year, like the, I guess, astrological new year, like in March and April, kind of have like new feelings.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful way to put it. Yeah, make it a habit. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sacha.
Thank you.
So right after you is going to be your sister sharing the tips for the winter. And I hope that I'll get to see you very soon. And you have like especially a new beginning coming in the spring, right? So congratulations on that too.
Thank you so much. I also have, if anyone is interested in a winter activity, we're going to do the first full moon of 2022 at a yoga retreat in Mexico. So this will be, it's really, the theme is really water healing. And water is a really great element to work with for like releasing and cleansing. And so, yeah, if anyone's interested, I can give more info about that, but that will be January, first full moon of the new year.
That's incredible. I will put your info on the video so everyone can reach out and listen to your podcast too. Maybe you can share that with me and we can put everything on there.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you so much, Sacha.
Yay, thank you. Satnam.
Good morning here on this cold winter day with the winter solstice glow tip, and today I'm talking about oil cleansing. Here is one of my personal favorites. Oil cleansing is a way of cleansing your face simply using oil. So what you're going to do is start on a dry face, clean hands, dry hands, and massage for at least 1 minute a cleansing oil into your face. The thing with the cleansing oil is it has botanicals and essential oils that help fight bacteria, help balance sebum, help remove impurities. You know, when you have like little breakouts that are kind of still lingering, help wash those off. So for a minute, you're going to massage your face with a cleansing oil. After that, you're going to have a warm towel that you steam over your face, and then use the warm washcloth or towel to remove. Additionally, if you didn't have a lot of washcloths on hand, you could even use a paper towel as an option. So the benefits of oil cleansing, especially this time of year, is hydration and nourishing. It's dry out. We're sleeping with the heaters on. Well, I'm in Northern California, so it's pretty chilly. Sleeping with the heaters on, our skin's dry. So giving that extra oil boost in your cleansing routine along with that massage is guaranteed to give you some glow.